I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup Studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup Strengths Explorer series, recorded on March 21st, 2019. Strengths Explorer is a podcast series that dives deep into the 10 talent themes of the Clifton Youth Strengths Explorer, designed for adults who are interested in accepting, affirming, and growing the individual potential within a child. This series expands your language to describe what is right and strong with children ages 10 to 14, and maybe a little bit on either side of that. To further your understanding, check out Gallup's book, Strength-Based Parenting, available wherever books are sold, or you can purchase it directly from us if you'd like at our store, shop.gallup.com. Today's theme is Future Thinker. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. For all your Clifton Strengths coaching resources and training needs, you can also catch the video in both streaming and downloadable audio. For offline listening, we call that podcasting. All the cool kids are doing it. Edison research shows that now 51% of Americans have listened to a podcast in the last month. If you're not, isn't that cool? Yeah. I wish I could say that was Gallup research. We don't do that kind of research, but
I was a little bit more surprised that you just changed up the intro. You totally got my attention.
There you go. So join us on the podcast. Get subscribed. I was just helping Emily, who works here at Gallup this morning, do that on her phone. Any iPhone, Android device, they'll have podcasting apps. Jump in there, search Gallup Strengths Explorer, and get subscribed today. If you need help with that, head over to our coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. Micah Libran is our host today. She's a workplace consultant here. Micah, always great to see you and welcome back.
Gosh, Jim, great to be here. Thanks for having us.
We have an exciting one with Future Thinker. They're all exciting, to be honest, but this one is going to be super fantastic. As we think about Future Thinker, there's a lot of things to think about. It sounded like a Dr. Seuss book. All the things we can think. Let's think a little bit about Future Thinker today.
I'm going to try to avoid singing that, but now it's in my head. Thanks a lot. You can tell Alexa to play the things you can think. And if she just is doing that for you right now, you're welcome. But back to us, back to Future Thinker. Really what the definition of Future Thinker is about kids who love to think, love to dream about what can be. They consider possibilities more than they think about challenges. They like to imagine themselves in the future. What is their life going to be like? What adventures might they have? What experiences are still to come? They probably have bigger, more detailed visions of the future than other people. And I think that there's also this importance with Future Thinker about finding or describing or considering meaning that's pretty important. They will spend time kind of spinning a fiber that connects what they're doing today to the big dreams they have about what they're going to be, where they're going to be, or what they'll be doing in the future.
In the book, Strength-Based Parenting, we have a whole chapter talks about strength spotting. And so we've been covering that here on all the sessions we've been doing. If this is your first one, by the way, we've done all the other 9 of these. Maybe by the time you've been listening to it, you can go back and see these sections. What would we look for if we were strength spotting for Future Thinker?
So strength spotting, to add a little more context thank you, Jim, for reminding us there's an entire chapter in the book. This really is our answer to, what do I do if my kid isn't old enough to take this yet? And we don't want it to be a reading comprehension assessment. It is designed for 10 to 12. So if you've got younger kids than this, it doesn't mean that they don't have talent or that it isn't defined. As you're strength spotting, you're likely, the younger the child is, the more variety of strengths you're going to spot, right? You're just like we only have 10 potential themes within Strengths Explorer versus 34 within Clifton Strengths. Our pathways of preference tend to narrow as we go. But as you're strength spotting for Future Thinker, you're going to notice a lot of big thinking. It might be a lot of contemplating questions, so more what if than why, just to draw a distinction between Future Thinker and Discoverer, which was last week. Discoverer might be, I want to study what's current, what's happening and why it's happening that way. With Future Thinker, I want to consider possibilities that maybe other people can't even define, or things that aren't even here and tangible. They might be introspective. They might be daydreamers. They might get lost right in front of you. I know an excellent teacher who was one of the first teachers in her district to use this in her schools, and it really helped her tell a story about Future Thinker, and specifically helped her tell the story about a student who she kept noticing would just zone out. And she thought that she needed to snap him back, really realize that, gosh, this is my job, right? I need to bring him back to reality. And then she realized, once he had Future Thinker, that when he was kind of disappearing right in front of her, he was going on these epic big journeys into the future. It helped her value that big thinking. So much of his energy was really specifically about for this kid how he could help his family in the future. And so she'd start to follow up anytime she noticed him zoning out. She'd let him go for a little bit, and then instead of saying just snap back to what we're doing right now, she could reel him in a little bit by saying, hey, what are you thinking about? How does that tie into what we're doing right now? And you'll notice, we'll talk about this in a moment, I'm sure, but you'll notice that this sounds a lot like the adult Clifton Strengths theme of futuristic. In fact, as I was typing these notes and thinking about that story with the teacher, I was reminded of season 1 of Theme Thursday, where Jeremy Petrosini talks about his futuristic and describes one of the great benefits that he's developed with awareness of his themes and his spouse is she will notice that he'll disappear right in front of her, and then she'll make sure to say, hey, where'd you go? Where was the future? Was it nice there? And so I think this is certainly one of those things, not saying that every future thinker is going to grow up to have the theme of futuristic, but definitely a similarity there where they are comfortable and can go really easily into these uncharted territory in their brain.
Micah, speaking of Theme Thursday, they're still out there and available for you if you are an avid Theme Thursday listener and you've come over and joined us on Strengths Explorer. But maybe you didn't get through all 4 seasons, or maybe you didn't realize there were 4 seasons available for you of Theme Thursday. If you want to look at those Clifton Strengths themes, are all available for you. If you search Gallup Theme Thursday in your podcast app, you can download those. We have a lot of resources available for you. So if you mention that, if you want to go back to season 1, you could just look for Theme Thursday Futuristic is what that would be, and you can go back to season 1 and get that done. Mike, a future thinker is one of my favorite ones as an adult to interface or to interact with students, with children who are doing this. I love that exercise of going to the future with them. I just love sitting down. In fact, sometimes I get lost with them. As we think about how we relate to this talent as adults, what else could we be looking for? How could we relate to it?
If that's an important question, I think how do I reflect myself in this theme? Future thinker is certainly a thinking theme. It very closely aligns to futuristic. Within the 10 Strengths Explorer themes, there's probably 3 that align very, very similarly to other themes within Clifton Strengths. And so futuristic and future thinker would be one of those. But I think regardless of how you think or whether you have the adult strategic thinking themes dominant, you can see yourself reflected in a future thinker child by considering where you get your best ideas. It might not be from the same place as a future thinker, but consider, regardless of what your talents are as an adult, consider where you get those aha moments. When do you get just that mental espresso shot when you get your best discoveries? Who helps you think? What makes things clear for you? Chances are your answer to these questions is going to be much more specific than a child's answer. Maybe you can go toward, it's research, it's partnership, it's competitive opportunities, or maybe it's comparing things. Maybe it's when something is a completely blank slate. That's the way this is designed. You have more practice and more feedback and more experience, so you can narrow those pathways and be very specific. For future thinker, let's expand it back a little bit more. They get the most motivation and energy, the most aha moments by putting themselves 3 inches farther into tomorrow than the rest of us are. It's from thinking about what can be rather than where they are right now.
In our innovation exercises that we do with our high school interns, this is area where this future thinking, futuristic government really comes out as we give them these opportunities to kind of think of what could be. Again, it's one of my favorite exercises to let that run. Get into those conversations and really find those areas where they can get those 3 inches ahead and maybe even farther. Sometimes as adults, like you're mentioning, we begin to limit those and put these ideas in a box. Oh, no, that can't be done, or you're crazy. I think I've shared the story on here before where we had one of our students who told us at the beginning of the year he was going to create a digital AI assistant like the A lady, like Lady A, or like Google Home. And I kind of went, yeah, sure, right. I didn't say any of that, and sure enough, in the 14 weeks he was with us, he got a really good start on this, right? And if I'd kind of pulled him aside and said, hey, I started using terms that limited him, right? We may not have gotten that same result. And when we think, because they listen to everything we say, and I think when they're saying these ideas, we have to be really, really careful not to limit them. And it's not saying they can't do it, but sometimes we use words that are limiting to them, and or even we act that way. So, Micah, as we think about some describing words, some accepting words we could use, what are some great words we could use?
So it's tempting just to rattle these off, but as I read them, I want you to really think about where in my discussions, in the paragraphs that I insert into the world all day long, where could I use these words or which children do I know that I could use these words to describe? Imaginative, creative, visionary, big thinker, and I imagine that with like really big bold font. Uninhibited, innovative, inspired, original.
Innovation is really hot right now, by the way, too. And I think with students, there are so many tools available to us as resources to help our students kind of think through this. Micah, I want to bring this up. There's a little question in the chat room about people who feel anxious about the future. Do you have any thoughts on, I think there's a separation here when we think about anxiety, when we think about worrying, that comes from a different place maybe than when we think about future, thinking about what could be. Do you have any thoughts on that as we think about, I think it was Jen's question about someone who's a strong future thinker, but maybe feel anxious about it?
So I saw that question. Jen says, how do you help a child who's strong and future thinker not feel anxious? And I clarified first. I said, are we putting our own anxiety on this? Is it a potential that we're describing, or is this something that's really happened? And she mentioned that.
1 second, Micah. Go back to that sentence because I lost your audio for just a second. So start that thought.
You think I can go back to what I meant?
I know.
What I wanted to clarify was when we're asking that question, are we just putting our own fear about what it's like to think about the future on that child? But Jen does say that her son, who's 9, tends to ask questions that expose his worries. What will happen when you die is one of those questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a beautiful example of an opportunity to do some nexting, which is a really great element of building hope with kids. Future thinkers might just next even further, right? It's about thinking what happens or what am I looking forward to, so that you can then help them see that they are the link between now and tomorrow. That's something we need to think about doing for all children, for all humans, but especially with those future thinkers. Understand that their future has a lot more color, has a lot more sound and senses like than yours might, unless you're, high futuristic, or you've got other themes that help you access a real vibrant picture of the future. Be prepared to go there with them. And if it is an anxiety piece, you're probably going to make it worse by ignoring it. You're probably going to make it worse by saying, don't worry about it. So lean into it with them, be brave. It's a little bit like hold their hand, and walk into the future with them and really ask them more. And I think that is maybe a little bit, Jim, is what you were mentioning with, instead of tampering them down and saying, you're not going to be able to, build an AI assistant during one semester, or you don't need to worry about what happens when I die. Instead of saying yes or no to the dream that they're exposing you to, ask more questions. Mm-hmm. Say, what are you seeing? What are you imagining? How do you think this is going to go? What is it? Maybe then it's also exploring, what can we do today that's going to make that future every bit as bright and positive as you dream it could be. But realize that maybe part of thinking about the future all the time, maybe part of that reveals some anxiety. The theme itself is wired to be on the positive side of things. And that's where it really is very similar to the futuristic theme in our adult assessment, where it's not about this sort of doomsday futuristic. That honestly is a little bit too practical to fit the theme. It would probably be more around that deliberative piece of being able to notice risk and project that risk into the future. And I'm not sure exactly which thinking theme in Strengths Explorer that would align to, but I think it's realizing that the theme itself really does describe the power and the joy and the energy that motivates children who think about what can be, think about possibility. We don't have a whole lot in our research that suggests future thinker is about worry or is about anxiety. And I do think that worry and anxiety is a normal part of being a kid. Fear is a normal part of being a human, but especially a normal part of being a kid. If you would have heard my son scream yesterday when he saw a spider, like if you would have been on, I was standing in the kitchen and I thought he was being crushed by a piece of furniture. Like it was intense, but it was also part of his story and part of his narrative. So don't ignore it. Don't be afraid
Yeah.
of it, but also don't necessarily cluster fear and anxiety together with future thinker.
Yeah, I remember fear keeps us alive. I mean, it is one of those kinds of things. Oftentimes, that can be a healthy sense and a healthy dose. What else, Micah? When we think about this information, we've identified this future thinker in a child. What else can we do with this?
One reason that we try to do this at all, one reason we try to identify the strengths of students is to open up their best way of attacking their future, thinking about their unique possibilities, their definitions of success, rather than being equipped with the only thing we know how to do, which is replicating our own. We want to hold future thinkers and all kids accountable to their greatness, not to ours. So you can keep this top of mind for you and for your child or your student with great questions. Here's a couple of them that are better than how was your day? What are you imagining? What do you think should be different? What will our family love to do next year? What makes you most excited? What could we how could we get better at something? What should we worry less about? What are you looking forward to? Can you tell I was on a roll? I've got two more. How will your life be different when you're an adult? And what do you think you'll be excited about next year? Or if year isn't age or situation appropriate, you might replace that with your next milestone. What are you excited about when you're in high school? What are you excited about once you learn how to swim? XYZ. Insert something there.
If you're driving right now and you're like, oh, I can't take notes, that's okay. We actually have this for you available on the blog post. So if you go to coaching.gallup.com, in the search button, just put future thinker. It'll bring you right to this post. And we've listed those out for you. So don't forget, we put those there for you as well. If you're listening live, you had to write it down. So when we think about how we can affirm this, Mike, I really do appreciate the fact that through this series, we're really trying to emphasize what's best and strong, right, with these children. There is a tendency sometimes to work backwards. And in the Clifton Strength side, sometimes we always go to a helps and hinders, or we want to go to balconies and basements, those kinds of things. And we're really trying to stay on the positive side of this. So as we think about affirming future thinker, what keeps us on the positive side?
Well, I think part of it is just relax and allow for dreaming. You can't always see big thinking. And with this and other similarly cerebral themes, something's always spinning, even if they're not showing clues. This is super challenging for me as a parent with high communication. If it wasn't said out loud, did it really happen? Like that's sort of where I come from. I just live in this space where I need to say something in order for it to be real. Our son would do this really annoying squeak instead of answering a question. If he didn't want to talk, he would sort of like shrug and make a nasty noise, and it drove my husband and I crazy. Now we had to learn to either be okay with it as a cue that he needs some think time, or allow him and teach him to say, I don't want to talk right now, and then be okay with it. So we have, and I think I'm spotting a little bit of future thinking. He's a preschooler, so we don't really know. It could be a whole lot of other things, but whatever it was a cue that I've got something going on in my head that I'm not ready to share with you. And so what we've done is I've promised if my son will say, I don't want to talk, I promise to leave him alone until he comes back to me, or until something changes, whichever happened first. And that something that changes could be the car ride ended, or it's time for dinner, or whatever he's playing, he's through with. And so I think that is a structure that works for me to allow more dreaming, to allow more space for the kid. You figure out what works best for you. I think also, to affirm this theme, admit that the future thinker in your child can see things that you can't. So stop talking and start listening better. Never, ever dismiss a dream that they're sharing with you. Just ask more about it. You want to be a YouTube star. You want to be a professional athlete. You want to win an Academy Award. Don't just stop there, and don't just praise or end that. Don't let there be a period at the end of that dream sentence. Instead, ask what it is about that dream that excites them most. There's always more ideas in their head, and they will love giving you a tour of those ideas. I also really love the and part of really hopeful future casting for all kids, that you can be. Oh, my nephew, when he was younger, always wanted to be a ninja farmer. Well, why can't you do both, right? But realizing that, maybe I want to be a hockey player and a teacher. And there's even this is not an affiliate link, but there is a Daniel Tiger episode of this where there's a song where he says, you can be more than one thing. And it's that realizing that there is a motivational charging energy within the word and. So exploring those opportunities and really helping your kids try on different possibilities is going to help strengthen that muscle that they're building when they're thinking about the future.
Our current system, I can only speak for the United States, but when we think about our current job system, really puts a lot of pressure on students to kind of narrow down this. What are you going to study in college? What are you going to do when you grow up? As you sing that song, Micah, it gets me thinking sometimes I didn't even figure out what I was going to do. And I'm still kind of figuring out what I'm going to do till I was 30. And I didn't really find the role that I really like what I'm doing right now, what I think I'm uniquely good at, till I was in my mid 40s. And so I think oftentimes let's as adults, let's not create these funnels too quickly. Like your interests can be more than one thing. And actually they should try a whole bunch of things. And there should be plenty of room for experimentation and safety. That's at an age where we can provide that safety to them, where we can provide that net, where we can let them experiment. Way better if they do it at 10 than when they do it at 18. And be okay with that. I think that we get some great opportunities. We're going to maybe talk a little bit about this in the Go Do It Challenge. We've got some things that you can do, but some great opportunities there. Micah, when we think about some things we want to challenge folks with, the Go Do It part of what we're doing here, what do we got for them today?
First, a great reminder that if you haven't yet had your kid take Strengths Explorer, you should. Or if you have, but you haven't explored the resources, your Strengths Explorer results include action items for both the child and an adult in that child's life. So you should explore those. There's also a lot of great ideas for action within the book. But I've got 2 challenges that just come from me and my brain. Number 1, we're calling See the Future. And it is, I'm making no bones about this, it is an art project. Don't be afraid. There are a lot of ways you can do this. I'd like you to do, this is something we do this week. Ask your child to draw a picture of themselves in the future they're most excited about. So maybe that's next year, maybe it's during a next milestone, maybe it's when they're an adult, and maybe it's just when they reach a certain goal. Think about getting age appropriately creative on how you do this. Maybe it's something with giant sheets of butcher paper and you do trace their body and allow them to color it in. Maybe they're into claymation and you get them some Play-Doh and have them create their future self with clay. Maybe they're really agile online and they create an avatar. Really what you're trying to do is illustrate that projector that's in their brain and just helping you see what they're already seeing. Number 2 is feed the future. So pick something that your kid is excited about being or doing in the future and give them a chance to try it on. So maybe they want to be a fireman, take them to the fire station. Do they want to help others? Volunteer to babysit your neighbor for the weekend, and do it alongside them. Do it alongside them this week and then debrief after with them. Now, in that debrief, you might ask things like, what did you like about that? What did you learn about that? What did you notice? What was the best part of that for you? What would you want to try again? And you don't have to force them to keep their promise that they sort of made when they said, I might want to do this. That exploration might be enough and they realize they've got other dreams to chase. But the idea is you can be there as that facilitator of reality to the possibility that they're leading you toward.
Micah, let's model this a little bit. We'll do it in the post show because we got a bunch of adults out there listening to us right now, I think. Children, if you're listening to the recorded version of it, thanks for doing that, by the way. I've encouraged some to say, I was meeting with one of our folks this morning, kind of talking about this series. And I said, she has a 10-year-old. And I said, listen, like we make these for adults, but try it with your student. I love some of the feedback that you get. We said we've made these for adults, but we'd like to think about it. So in the post show, maybe we'll do a little, we'll do some role play out there with the chat room and talk about what future do you see for some of those who have some of these talents or see this in their children. We'll get some of that feedback. Micah, when you think about wrapping this, how would you put a bow on our subject today?
You said something huge that I want to take a little bit into the post show. But I think that, you might not know what you want to be when you grow up. I think what we could do that would serve children is to not end that growing up as a static destination. That we teach kids, just like we teach adults, that life is a long race, hopefully really, really long. And we just want you to be able to come back tomorrow and think and pay attention to things when they're working, pay attention to your strengths when they're firing, pay attention to the kind of world and the kind of relationships that really leads you to being yourself, and realize that that's going to be an ever evolving journey. So the goal of our podcast here is to improve the conversations that punctuate that journey, the conversations that we have with children specifically that help adults accept, affirm, and grow those natural talents within kids. Special thanks to Dr. Mary Reckmeyer and Jerlene Mosley.
Pretty great stuff. Micah, thanks for doing this again. Always fun to get together with you on Thursdays. I always, during the day, as I'm getting ready for this, I was kind of like, another webcast today, and I always get done glad that we're here doing this together. So thanks for all the work that you do. By the way, this is all Micah. None of it's me. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. For this program in particular, you may want to get super familiar with strengthsexplorer.com. So that site has all the resources. It's got a teacher's guide. It's got a parent guide, all available for you to download. Some great resources, some great information, a few videos. As we've been working through this series, Mike, I've gotten a lot of questions that could be answered at strengthsexplorer.com. As a programming note, as a technical note, did you want to add something to that?
Go there, download the activity guide. It's currently free.
and get a sample. The sample report is out there as well. We are going through some system changes, and actually Strengths Explorer will separate from the Gallup Strength Center and be its own site here coming up in the fall of 2019. So work with us a little bit, just as we're having more and more people coming to Strengths Explorer. In fact, I just asked our tech team to give me some numbers on where we're headed with Strengths Explorer. But if you have any questions, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this program, as well as all our past ones, and a link to all our social resources. They're available on our coaches blog, and that's also a site you should be on and familiar with, because there's a million resources available for you. Most of the time when you ask me questions, I just go there and find it. Coaching.gallup.com. So cut out the middleman, just go search. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, we have those on the Clifton Strengths side. If you're interested in doing that, we have a list of all of our courses that lead to certification. They're available on our courses page. Go to courses.gallup.com. If you haven't signed up yet to be a part of the Clifton Strengths Summit, you're going to want to do that June 3rd, 4th, and 5th of 2019. If it's after that, we're probably doing it again. So head out to cliftonstrengthsummit.com. Get registered. 1,000 register right at this point, and we'll close it at 1,500. So you want to make sure you get in there and get signed up for that. cliftonstrengthsummit.com. Micah and I get to do a cool little thing at the end of that, Micah. I'm getting pretty excited about that.
Rumor has it Jim Collison is going to rap the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll beatbox, you rap. How does that sound? Maybe I'll be the rapper and you'll be the singer. That's a real popular style these days.
It's a great way to make us look whiter than we are.
Terrible. Join us on our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/called to coach. We'll be back. We've got a few more of these to go, and thanks for listening. If you're listening live, stay around for the post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.